The gym echoed with laughter as a black belt martial artist jokingly pointed at an old black woman in the crowd and said, "Wanna spar, Granny?" He thought it was harmless fun, but what happened next didn't just shut everyone up, it changed how they saw her forever. The Iron Fist gym was alive with noise shouts from sparring pairs, the heavy thud of fists on punching bags, and the occasional bark of a coach pushing a fighter to their limit. The place reeked of sweat, determination, and the scent of old leather gloves. It was a place where egos were built and broken. Fighters, mostly in their 20s and 30s, moved like wolves in a pack, young, strong, and hungry to prove themselves. In the middle of all this controlled chaos stood someone who didn't belong, or so it seemed. An old black woman, maybe in her early 60s, short and soft-looking, stood quietly by the wall. She wore a faded cardigan, thick walking shoes, and had short gray curls framing her calm face. Most people assumed she had come to pick up a grandson or maybe just wandered in by mistake. She didn't talk to anyone, just observed her eyes, sharp, scanning the room like she was measuring something. It didn't take long for someone to notice her. A young black belt named Marcus, cocky and full of himself, saw her standing there and laughed. "Looks like we got a fan," he said, elbowing one of his friends. His group chuckled. Marcus was known for his flashy kicks and louder mouth, always ready to show off. He stepped a little closer, raising his voice for attention. "Hey, Granny," he called out, grinning like a kid who thought he was funny. "You here to knit us some gloves or fight?" A few others laughed along. The woman didn't react. She kept her arms crossed and watched him steadily. "Come on," he added. "Wanna spar?" He was still half joking, expecting a polite laugh or a gentle shake of the head. Instead, she stepped forward. There was no hesitation, no smile, just a quiet, calm confidence in the way she moved. She walked to the edge of the mat and slowly removed her cardigan, folding it neatly and placing it on a bench. Underneath, she wore a fitted black training shirt and loose workout pants. Her arms, though aged, were lean and strong. Her posture straightened. She didn't look like a sweet grandma anymore. She looked like someone who belonged on the mat. Marcus froze. The room went still. A few heads turned, then a few more. One of the coaches, sensing things were about to get interesting, stepped in. "Ma'am, are you sure you want to spar?" he asked, half concerned. "We keep it clean here, but this isn't, I'm sure," she replied, cutting him off gently but firmly. Her voice was low, calm, but it carried weight. The kind of voice that didn't need to raise its volume to be heard. The coach looked at Marcus's light contact only. He said firmly. Marcus nodded, but his face was still laced with amusement. He assumed it would be over in seconds, that he'd gently tap her shoulder, she'd laugh, and everyone would get back to their training. He didn't see her roll her shoulders back or the way her eyes shifted into focus. He didn't notice the slight bounce in her knees or the way she took her stance, balanced, grounded, perfect. People started gathering around the mat. Phones came out. Someone whispered, "Is this really happening?" The woman simply nodded once at Marcus. "Let's begin," she said. And in that moment, something shifted. The laughter faded. The jokes died. Marcus wasn't fighting someone's grandmother. He was stepping into the ring with something much more dangerous experience. And though he didn't know it yet, he was about to learn a lesson that would leave the entire gym speechless. The room held its breath as Marcus and the old woman faced each other on the mat. The moment felt surreal, like time had paused to witness something strange yet fascinating. Marcus tried to smile, but it came out awkward. His eyes darted to his friends, hoping they'd start laughing again, maybe call the whole thing off, but no one said a word. Everyone was watching now. Even the head coach crossed his arms and stood quietly nearby. Marcus raised his fists casually, still treating it like a harmless joke. "All right then, light and easy," he muttered. The woman simply nodded and took a stance low, grounded, like water waiting to move. That stance alone raised eyebrows. It wasn't something you'd expect from someone her age. It was tight, controlled, practiced. The coach gave the signal, and the sparring began. Marcus bounced on his toes, circling her slowly. He reached out with a lazy jab, just to test her reaction. She didn't move. He threw another, a bit faster, and that's when it happened. In a flash, she slipped to the side with fluid ease, grabbed his arm, and spun around him. With a sweep of her leg, Marcus was flat on the mat before he knew what hit him. Gasps erupted from the crowd. It wasn't just that she knocked him down, it was how effortlessly she did it. No wasted movement, no hesitation, just precision. Marcus scrambled to his feet, his face red with shock. His smile was gone. This time he came at her with real focus, throwing a quick combination of punches. The woman blocked each one with calm, practiced motions, deflecting like it was nothing. Then, she countered a sharp palm strike to his chest, followed by a spinning back kick that caught him clean, when the stomach and sent him stumbling. The crowd was completely silent now. Even the background sounds of the gym had faded into nothing. All that remained was the rhythmic thud of their footwork and the pounding of Marcus's pride crashing into reality. He tried again, harder this time. A kick, a feint, a lunge, but she read every move like she'd seen them 100 times before. She ducked, swept, twisted, and sent him tumbling again. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a fluke. This was mastery. Years of hidden training, buried behind wrinkles and gray hair. And suddenly, everyone realized they were watching a real fighter. By now, no one dared to laugh. The phones that had come out for laughs were now recording with reverence. Some were whispering to each other, trying to guess who she was. The coach didn't speak, but his expression had changed completely. He watched her with wide eyes and a slow nod of respect. Marcus, on the other hand, stood panting, bent slightly at the waist, hands on his knees. Sweat poured down his forehead, not from exertion alone, but from the disbelief and humiliation of what had just happened. After one final exchange, the coach stepped in and called an end to the match. Marcus didn't argue. He just stood there, silent, staring at the ground. The woman gave a respectful nod and turned to retrieve her cardigan. She moved with the same grace she had shown on the mat, not proud, not smug, just peaceful, as if none of it was surprising to her. The silence in the gym remained for a moment longer, like the air itself didn't know what to say. Then someone clapped. Another followed. Soon the whole room was applauding, not the way they cheer, flashy knockout, but the way they honor something rare and meaningful. In that moment, the old woman who no one had taken seriously walked out of the ring with more respect than any champion. And Marcus, who had started the whole thing as a joke, that stood quietly in her shadow, humbled. The next day, Iron Fist Gym was buzzing with questions. The sparring video had already started to make its rounds online, shared by gym members and picked up by local fight groups. Everyone had the same thought: who was she? The clip didn't last long, barely 2 minutes, but that was enough to shake up the entire scene. Comments poured in. Some refused to believe what they saw, others claimed it was staged, but those who were in the gym, who had felt the air shift that day, knew the truth. It wasn't a trick. That woman, whoever she was, had left the gym stunned. Even Marcus hadn't returned that morning, too embarrassed. Some said, too humbled. Others guessed. Coach Darren, a former national-level fighter himself, couldn't get her out of his mind. He had trained hundreds of athletes over the years, but her technique, her posture, the way she controlled her breathing, it wasn't just good, it was elite. She had moved like someone who had spent decades mastering the art, not just practicing it. And that kind of mastery didn't come from casual training or backyard sparring. She had been somewhere before, she had been someone. So after the morning class, he made a quiet decision. He grabbed his coat and headed to the small public library near the old town block, where older local records were still kept. It didn't take long. Tucked between old newspaper clippings and sports event archives, he found a name: Gloria Trenton, a champion, a warrior. Her photo stared back at him from a 1983 martial arts tournament page. Gold medal around her neck, smile wide and eyes fierce. Gloria had once been the pride of her generation, not just in local circuits but national-level tournaments. She had even qualified for an international invitational in Japan, a rare achievement for any martial artist, especially a woman in those days. She wasn't just good, she had been one of the best, but just as quickly as her name had risen, it had vanished. After 1986, there were no more records, no interviews, no fights, nothing. Darren asked around, digging gently into old circles, and finally got a story. Gloria had lost her husband in a car accident just days before one of the biggest competitions of her life. He had been her biggest supporter, her trainer, and her only family. She never showed up for the match, never stepped into a ring again. She disappeared into a quiet life, avoiding fame and attention, her fighting days seemingly buried with her grief. Back at the gym, Darren shared the story quietly with a few senior members. The reaction was a mix of awe and guilt. They had laughed at her, mocked her, treated her like she was fragile and irrelevant, but she had been through storms most of them couldn't imagine, and still carried a fire inside her that most fighters only dreamed of. The respect shifted from viral amazement to deep admiration. When Gloria returned to the gym the next afternoon wearing the same cardigan, same shoes, the mood was completely different. No jokes, no smirks, only silence and nods. Darren approached her, hand outstretched, and said, "We'd be honored if you'd help us train." She looked at him quietly, then smiled just a little. "Only if they're willing to learn," she said. No egos on the mat. From that moment on, she wasn't just the old woman at the gym, she was Coach Gloria. She didn't talk much, and she didn't tolerate arrogance. But when she moved, when she demonstrated a technique, the entire gym paid attention. She didn't need belts or trophies anymore, her presence alone was enough. And slowly, without saying it out loud, the fighters of Iron Fist Gym knew they were standing in the shadow of greatness. Within a week, everything at Iron Fist Gym had changed. Gloria Trenton, once seen as just an old woman standing quietly in the corner, had become the heartbeat of the place. Her name, once lost in yellowed newspaper clippings, now echoed through every hallway and training mat. The younger fighters, who once barely acknowledged her presence, now watched her every move like students before a master. Not because she demanded attention, she never raised her voice, never asked for respect, but because her actions had spoken louder than anything words could say. She didn't take over any official role, she didn't ask to be called coach, but people started calling her that anyway. Coach G, they said with a mixture of affection and reverence. It started small. One fighter asked her to check his stance. Another wanted help with balance during a roundhouse. Soon, entire training sessions were pausing so she could explain a simple adjustment. Her corrections were never harsh, just honest. "You're too stiff," she'd say. "You're thinking about power, too much focus on timing." And when they listened, they got better, much better. Marcus, the black belt who had once mocked her, was the first to change. After the sparring match, he disappeared for 2 days, but when he returned, he came straight to her, bowed his head slightly and said, "I was wrong." Gloria nodded once, said nothing, and gestured for him to join the class. From that day forward, Marcus trained like never before. He dropped the arrogance. He stayed late to watch her chatterbox. He wrote notes during her drills, and slowly, others followed. The gym that once ran on ego and competition now started to grow around humility and learning. Outside the gym, Gloria's story spread like wildfire. The viral video passed 1 million views in days. Local newspapers interviewed her. Martial arts blogs called her the Silent Storm. A sports channel even invited her to appear on a show, but she declined. "Let them come to the gym if they really care," she said. "I'm not a TV star." She didn't want fame. She wanted focus, discipline, truth, and training. But one thing that truly changed the gym was the way she treated everyone, the Sam young, old, experienced, or brand new. A nervous teenage girl came in one afternoon, too shy to speak. Gloria walked up to her, showed her how to wrap her hands, and stayed with her through her first full training session. That girl didn't quit, and within a month, she was sparring confidently. A man in his 40s who had never fought a day in his life joined to lose weight. Gloria trained with him as if he was preparing for a championship. To her, everyone was capable of learning if they were willing to put in the work. Gloria's presence didn't just improve technique, it transformed attitudes. Fewer arguments broke out. Fighters helped one another more often. Coaches adjusted their approach, realizing that strength alone wasn't the highest goal. It was discipline, respect, and control. The atmosphere had shifted. It was no longer just a gym where fighters trained. It became a place where character was sharpened alongside kicks and punches. And through it all, Gloria remained as calm and steady as ever. She arrived early, left late, and moved like a quiet force of nature. She didn't need to remind anyone of who she was or what she'd done in her past. They already knew, not because of medals or interviews, but because every time she stepped on the mat, she reminded for them what real martial arts looked like. She wasn't just a legend from the past, she was a living lesson in what it means to carry strength with grace. Months passed, and Gloria Trenton became more than just a name or a surprise sparring match. She became the soul of Iron Fist Gym. Her quiet presence became something people looked forward to. Fighters who used to come for trophies or bragging rights now came to train with intention. She changed more than technique, she changed hearts. Gloria never gave long speeches, never lectured. Her way of teaching was subtle, a glance, a gesture, a few calm words that carried the weight of decades. Even the youngest kids, full of energy and attitude, fell silent when she walked by, not out of fear, but out of pure respect. One chilly morning in December, Gloria arrived at the gym like she always did before anyone else. She moved through her stretches, slow and focused, her breath steady in the cold air. The gym was still dim, the lights just flickering on, but her silhouette on the mat looked as powerful as ever. Coach Darren arrived next and just stood in the doorway watching her. There was something timeless about the way she moved, like she wasn't just going through motions, but connecting to something deeper, something most fighters never even touch in a lifetime. That day, she trained with almost everyone, correcting a teenager's form, helping Marcus perfect his timing, even working one-on-one with a man recovering from knee surgery. No one thought anything unusual about the day, but as the session ended, Gloria stood at the center of the mat and called everyone in a rare move. The fighters, sweaty and tired, gathered around her in a circle. She looked at each of them, her eyes as sharp and calm as ever. "I want to thank you," she said, her voice low but clear, "for listening, for learning, for becoming better, not just stronger." She paused, then added, "My time here is done." The words hit the room like a thunderclap. Shock rippled through the circle. Marcus was the first to speak. "Coach, wait, what do you mean you're leaving?" She gave a small smile. "It's time for me to rest, and for all of you to lead." The silence was heavy. No one wanted to let go, but no one argued either. They all knew Gloria had already given them more than they ever expected, more than they deserved. Coach Darren stepped forward, voice thick with emotion. "You've built something here," he said. "This gym will never be the same." She nodded. "That's the point. It's not supposed to stay the same, it's supposed to grow." And with that, she placed her old worn gloves in the center of the mat. "Leave them there," she said. "Let them remind you of what really matters." The next morning, she didn't return. Her name never appeared in the schedule again. But the gloves stayed. A glass case was built around them with a small plaque. Coach Gloria Trenton, the spirit of Iron Fist. Her story, once forgotten, became the foundation of the gym. New fighters would come in and ask, who was she? And the coaches would tell the tale not of a viral video, but of a woman who silenced a room with discipline, shattered pride with grace, and built champions with truth. Gloria went back to her quiet life. Occasionally, she would be spotted walking through the park or sitting at a cafe reading, but she never came back to the mat, not because she couldn't, but because she had already given it everything, and that was enough. Iron Fist Gym never stopped training, never stopped growing, but it was never again just a place to fight. It became a place where real warriors were made, not by strength alone, but by the quiet power of humility, respect, and the lasting echo of one unforgettable woman. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, share, and leave your thoughts in the comments below. For more powerful stories, subscribe to The Black Struggle and join the journey today.